Guys, welcome back to Drone Camps RC. I'm Justin Davis, and today we have a very special guest that is going to join us on the show. His name is Dave Messina. He is the CEO and president of the FPV Freedom Coalition. So yeah, he's the dude that's in DC, boots on the ground, even in Congress, and speaking to the FAA for our rights as FPV pilots. What a cool guy to have on our first sort of fireside chat style interview, just kind of casual, talking about FPV regulations, the FAA, the industry, manufacturing, American FPV, the things that are happening right now that are important to you guys. I wanted to bring you this and give it to you in this laid back format. So if you enjoy our videos and now interviews as well, and drone news, tutorials, and all those things, if they benefit you, please become a Patreon or go to our website and grab yourself a hat and a t-shirt. That would be awesome for supporting the hobby of FPV and our channel. So I appreciate you, and I think we should just not wait any longer and go ahead and bring Dave Messina on the channel. A great interview, not to be missed. Guys, welcome to the channel. Today we have somebody that is legendary in the FPV community. A good friend of mine, Dave Messina. He is the CEO and founder and president of the FPV Freedom Coalition. And for years now, he's been fighting for all of you guys in the FPV community for your right to fly. He's on the Drone Advisory Committee, and he's even been in the halls of Congress for all of us. He's been at the center of the push for fair regulations, remote ID solutions, and making sure that we have all of our freedoms to fly, and that freedom stays alive for hobbyists and professionals alike. So he's not just an advocate, he's one of us, and he's a pilot that understands what's at stake for the FPV hobby. Guys, welcome Dave Messina to the show.
Thanks, Justin. And the two other founders of FPV Freedom Coalition are Josh Cook and Dan Oakes. And we've been at it for about 6 years. And we've been very active in the DAC and then AC, which is the Drone Advisory Committee, and then the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee associated with the FAA. We are on the BVlos ARC, which is the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee. For the last 5 years, I've been on the ASTM Remote ID Working Group, which is the group of 138 engineers who put together the spec, or which then became the means of compliance for remote ID. So we've been very involved in that. And as a mechanical engineer, I've been making model airplanes since I was a kid, which means over 55 years of building planes.
I saw
And
that. Yeah, you
I've
and I
also,
both.
yeah, a couple of years flying models.
Couple
And
AMA guys here. Don't tell
yes,
anybody. Shh.
well, we work as closely as we can with Tyler Dobbs in the AMA, and I've been an AMA club officer and club member, number of locations: Texas, Southern New York, and now upstate New York, and then to be in Pennsylvania.
Tell everybody watching, there's some guys out there that don't know about FPV Freedom Coalition. Tell them what your website is so that they know. We'll put it up on the screen
Thank you.
as well.
We're located at fpvfc.org, and we are an all-volunteer, not-for-profit organization, and we are one of the 4 FAA recognized community-based organizations. And so this we can process FRIAs, or FAA recognized identification area. And so that allows you to fly at a specific location without a remote ID device. And we've approved or gotten approved through the FAA. You work with us, and then we submit the application to the FAA. That's how the process works for individuals, organizations, and if you're an educational institution, we're happy to help you. But you can also submit those on your own. We are what FPVFC does is a lot of what we're doing is government advocacy. So we advocate on behalf of recreational operators, both RC as well as FPV drones, FPV wings operators, to help keep the regulations fluid and easy as possible. And we participate actively in task force and organizations and make our voice heard the best we can. And that's, you see things even like in the BVlos NPRM, the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Notice for Public Rulemaking. You see things popping up that we've introduced. Shielded operations is one,
Mhm.
recreational is another. Initially, the whole BVlos ARC had zero recreational, so we've got got a little bit. We don't want a lot more,
It's good
but
to slide that in there. The word
yeah,
recreational is very important
yes,
to
yeah,
most of these guys out there. Just they're flying for fun. They're not flying to make money. They just want to be able to continue to do what we're doing. I've heard recently also, Dave, that there are some uh, consider a lot of consider and this has been happening for years and years, but there are more considerations now for banning flying in parks and things like that. I just hear that more and more. And last week we read some news about a new system from a company out of Israel called Defend. And Defend is a military grade type of counter drone software and hardware together that can take over the control of a drone and land it where they would like to land it without the operator even knowing. So if you go into the preset geofence zone that they specify, if there's an event or say an NFL game, things like that, this system is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a lot of people were saying when we posted about it that, oh, well, this won't affect FPV drones, but actually it it will. Not just DJI drones. There's a new version that they're using. Um, and how would it take over ELRS? And how would it take over encrypted channels? So this is a not really just off the shelf uh, immersion RC or Fat Shark gear. This is military grade.
yeah. One of the organizations that we helped found is the Drone Advisory Council, and we're really very grateful to be part of this group of companies. It includes Aloft, Pilot Institute, Influential Drones, and DSPA, Drone Service Provider Alliance,
Hmm.
and Air Vigilance. And Air Vigilance is a company of counter UAS. So,
Hmm.
in addition to public safety, one of the six core members of FPV Freedom Coalition is an officer in Arlington Police, and he manages a fleet of pilots flying for public safety. And we also, in the Drone Advisory Council that we help run, uh, being very aware and working with and talking to someone who is day to day involved in counter UAS. So things just like what Defend is putting out, understanding there was a another ARC that ran in 2024, an advisory rulemaking committee. And the big problem in the United States is, well, we can figure out where they are. What are you going to do about it? And
Right.
so, right now, as most folks listening understand, if you take a drone or a model aircraft out of the sky, that's a felony. So, right now, you have to be either a federal officer or and designated by the FAA to take that on. So, there is legislation at a federal level that is
And
working
guys
to
were
see.
talking about that too when we posted about it. It was actually on CNN where they posted it, and one of the reporters actually said, "Why don't you just shoot it down?" That's like the common. They're like, "Why don't you just shoot it down?" So we've heard this so many times before. You, tell them why you should
Well,
never shoot a drone down, Dave.
yeah, so if you think of some of the drones that we fly, they're micros and they're sub 250. It's like, well, if you shoot that out of the sky with a shotgun, maybe not much is going to happen. But if you shoot an Inspire or a 5, 6, 10 pound drone out of the sky, and let's say you just clip one of the rotors, and now it's coming down, and the other motors are still spinning. We've described it. Now you've got a flying blender coming at individuals, and
Oh yeah, I
so
like to
it's
refer to even a 5 inch as a carbon fiber tomahawk.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's about the
and
same thing.
Yeah, and so for those of us who have been working on and flying internal combustion engines, when you stick something in the way of an engine or prop, and it tends to slow down. When you stick something in the way of an electric motor, it draws more current and tries to push through it. So losing digits and getting lacerated badly. That's
Yeah.
why it's a one, of course, it's a felony.
Yep.
Two, it's a really bad idea to shoot a drone out of the sky.
Well, the FAA does deem it as an aircraft, so essentially you're committing a
Right.
federal offense
Right.
when
Yeah,
you do
and
that. So
and
not a good idea.
we've had situations, and happily that one's been prosecuted, where folks have taken public safety drones out of the sky. So if it's in the sky and you don't know what it's doing, maybe it's zip line moving blood, or maybe it's sending working with the UPS group in Raleigh, moving medical supplies or organs across the city, and you're going to
Yeah.
take that out of the sky. So
Oh
that's that.
man.
Or maybe
Or
if you're in
Amazon.
Manhattan, there's a fantastic group of drone pilots in the FDNY, and so these folks are
Yeah.
they all you have to be a firefighter in order to be considered, and then you can become a drone pilot, and they're doing obviously critical surveillance of fires in Manhattan. So if
Yeah.
anyone knows or lives around Manhattan, you don't fly in Manhattan. It's much like around Washington D.C. It's almost like the FRZ around in Washington. But
Yeah.
uh, these are
Years
these are
ago, we had a
professionals.
Casey Neistat, a very popular YouTuber with millions of followers, and I'm sure you saw his videos when he first started up. He's a very DIY guy, and he was just using his drone as part of his toolkit, which I understand. But I'm like, Casey, like you gotta stop flying down up and down the street in Manhattan. Like it's only a matter of time before you get that knock on the door. And lo and behold, he
Yeah,
did something or
yeah,
whatever, it's usually, you have to do something a little bit sketchy to have them come knocking, and he just kept doing it over to Hudson and eventually they came to him and said, hey man, you can't do this anymore.
yeah,
um so it is common sense. A lot of it's common sense, and the powers that be just want people to fly with common sense. uh don't do anything crazy, and the counter drone thing won't really affect our community as much as it seems like it might. They're not going to just set this up around every corner of every neighborhood across the country. It's probably not going to affect you because most of us, we don't fly near stadiums. We don't fly over stadiums. We don't fly over crowded events. If you fly
critical
commercially, you have that waiver to do so, which you
critical
can get.
infrastructure and big assembly of people. And those are, so
Yeah,
if you're flying over critical infrastructure, as Greg from Pilot Institute would say, don't be that guy. Don't do
federal
it.
property,
Yeah.
courthouses, prisons, post office, anything slightly
Reservoirs,
government,
dams. Yeah. Yeah.
airports. We had two guys. It was down in Florida, I believe. I believe two foreign nationals. One was Chinese and one was Mexican. And the same time, they flew DJI drones over, I believe, Fort Lauderdale Airport. Um,
Not a good plan.
Not good idea. Both arrested, and do not pass go, do not collect $200,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
go to jail. But let's talk about let's because a lot of one of the big reasons that we had you here today on the show was to talk about BVlos, uh, the uh, the NPRM, what's what's coming up, how it affects the guys that are watching this interview. How does it affect them as recreational pilots? I think a lot of them want to know, and we can also touch base on, for people listening, how it's going to affect the commercial operators as well. And this is a pretty large document, I believe 700 and some pages.
Yes.
So Dave
Depending
is the guy
on
to
how you
summarize all that for you. And if you need that more of that information in the future, look up Dave for this type of stuff.
Absolutely. And we will be posting our comments hopefully this week on our website, fbvfc.org. And I've created a summary, but there is a fantastic video by Pilot Institute that takes just the piece by piece and what is it. And so if you're interested in digging into it, that's a great resource. And then we are going to immediately get into the what are the issues that we have with the Notice for Public Rulemaking, NPRM, and what are the comments that we're going to make. And so it's important to note that unlike if you send a note to your congressional representative or senator, if you can get all your friends to send exactly the same copy of the note and it's productive, constructive, that's a good thing with Congress. That's not how it works with a rule. With an agency rule, you want to be unique. And so, we're going
Yeah.
to offer all of the narrative of our comments. So you can look at that, and then we'll provide instructions on how we ask you, please send in comments. The areas where we think that this can that can impact recreational operators is there is a section in the NPRM that provides for recreational operators to fly beyond visual line of sight. So well, why do I care? Well, the FAA, if they're asked directly, well, how far can I fly today? Their answer is, well, it depends. And so if you dig deeply into some of the research, they'll agree some work that was done that it's about 2.3 miles, which is really far.
Oh yeah.
There is also a lot of international harmonization going on. So if one civil authority makes a rule, the others look at that and go, maybe we'll pick that up. In Britain, um, beyond visual line or visual line of sight is defined as far as you can fly where you can still maintain and see orientation and direction of flight of the aircraft.
Mm.
So with a micro, that's that's not too far. With a 5 inch,
It might be a little closer. Yeah.
that's
With a whoop.
100 yards. Maybe if I could probably 50 yards for me.
I
If
mean, the
I could
fun
see
thing about
5 inch.
whoops though is you fly like uh 2, 3 yards over and it feels like you already flew a mile,
Right. That's a good thing.
you know.
But so who cares? And so if you fly, so the definition of beyond or visual line of sight today is I can see it. If we're flying FPV, of course we know we need a visual observer with us. It has to be co-located. You have to maintain sight of the aircraft at all times. So you cannot fly in a bando. You cannot fly behind a building. You cannot fly behind a tree, a bridge, structure, man-made or natural. So recreational beyond visual line of sight sounds, well, okay. So that would allow me to fly a longer distance farther away. The NPRM lists recreational BVlos as limited to 10 nautical miles or 11 and a half miles. So that's cool.
That's further than
Um,
most commercial operators will fly.
that's a good distance.
Yeah, that's
And it has to be less than 55 pounds. Well, okay, cool. Definition of small UAS, unmanned aerial systems in the United States is under 55 pounds. Check, and that's 107 or recreational. Um, And yeah, you have to fly under category 3. Very, very low uh, population density. That's an issue.
yeah.
So it starts to get, it's really sparse. Now, we get a buy within the BVlos, or within the NPRM for BVlos. There are lots of requirements, but we get a buy on company operations and manuals, and there's no experience requirement, and you don't have to have a base of operations. You don't have to have physically individuals with the title of operations supervisor, but you have to be able to do that, and you don't have to have a plan for cybersecurity, and you don't have to execute that plan, and you don't have to have duty and rest requirements.
At
So
this point.
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow. And then there's of course you can see on my face, but you you have to have strategic deconfliction. You have to have conformance monitoring. You have to keep up records. You have
Mhm.
to have keep up reports. The UAS must be able to fly and continue the communication link as well as be able to fly after a lightning strike. It has to be fully
After a lightning
autonomous
strike,
after a lightning strike.
that's in the white pages. Wow.
That's 108.895, and that's in the NPRM.
In
And
the
you
new
have
in
to
the new one.
in the NPR in the Part 108 NPRM. So that's that's a lot. And so you say, well, reporting and recording. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. What do you have to report on? Well, you have to report on the flight data to the FAA and the manufacturer for every flight. If there's an interruption report, or if there's any interruption as defined as a momentary interruption of either your flight or the electronic linkage, you have to report that.
So
You have to
signal
identify,
loss or fail safe, you're supposed to write that down, report that.
or if there's a deviation from flight path, because you have to file your flight path, get approval for it, and if you deviate from that, you have to report it. You have to, all right, identify all systems or parts of failure. You have to report any failure of the automated data service provider. And that's the company that you have to buy a service from that's giving you conformance monitoring, which is the real-time reporting of how you're doing in terms of deviation from your flight path, as well as what are the other aircraft, UAS, and manned aircraft in your airspace. You have to report all security breaches where the operator loses control. You have to report property damage greater than $500, which is consistent with
Right.
Part 107, but they tell us it's not 107. And you have to report the serial number. In record keeping, you have to keep for each aircraft total time in service, status of limited life parts, records for each flight time, time, date, duration. You have to report all or record all mechanical irregularities, and you have to record all maintenance. And important again is the aircraft has to be fully autonomous. There's no flying this with controls or a ground control station. So the assumption is that this is a fully autonomous vehicle. We have an big issue with that.
Yeah.
So,
So, Dave, one of the things that we really need to talk about, and when I originally posted about uh, the BVlos, we said, uh, is it constitutional? Because there's some things in this new version that do talk about integration of TSA. Let's talk about that, and let's let the audience know what that involves, and is that possibly a privacy violation for American operators? And how would you word that, or is that constitutional?
so we've not dug into the privacy concerns. So far, we are very concerned with what the TSA has put forward in the NPRM and what they tell us they might add. And the rulemaking in the United States for an agency, whether it's the ATF on gun regs or it's the FAA on aircraft regulations, must follow a rulemaking law. And so the law states that this agency has to provide the public with a comment period for proposed rules. That's what the NPRM is all about. We have
Mm.
60 days to comment on this beyond visual line of sight recommended rule. The TSA has said, well, we're probably going to put a fair number of security elements in the final rule, and that's it. That's a violation of the law. So,
So what you're saying is to get this part 108, you have to pass vetting
right,
as well as a background check.
yes,
Can the operator be a felon, for
no,
example? You
no, you
cannot be a felon.
can't be a felon, can't have, and there's a list of standard elements that they do list, and they cite the TSA regs that you have to comply with. That's helpful, and that's fair. So they've posted that, but it's the aspect of TSA has said they're a partner with the FAA. So this NPRM comes to us from the Department of Transportation as well as Department of Homeland Security, where
Yeah.
TSA reports to. So
So
the
So what about 107? How does that apply to 107? That that same
It does not. And the crossover or the lack of crossover with 107 is an enormously important part of this whole discussion. So, a lot of recreational operators have gotten their Part 107.
hmm
Yes, I also have my ham
But
radio
just for the record, you're
general
not a
class.
felon.
I'm not a felon. Um,
I'm not a felon.
and so, in order to fly FPV, you should have your ham radio license. I have my general class license. You have to have your at least a technician's license, and it's easy to get.
Yeah.
And if you're a geek like me, it's fun. You learn more, and it's fun. So where this is important, the one of the aspects of the Beyond Visual Line of Sight NPRM is that it references Part 108. The moment it becomes a final rule, all Part 107 Beyond Visual Line of Sight waivers are nullified. So there are a number of businesses running based on these beyond visual line of sight waivers. There
Yeah.
are public safety organizations that have gotten, I think they're called COWs, um, and very important waivers that allow them to function, that allow them to do business, to do what they're supposed to do. They will all be stopped, and that's
Wow.
a huge issue. So it will be a simple edit for the FAA to go in and say that we're going to phase this out over time. That would make a lot of sense.
hmm
It's my personal estimation. I don't think that this whole beyond visual line of sight NPRM will be into full effect until 10 years has passed from the point of the issuance of the final rule.
hmm
So that's about a year from now, start a 10-year clock. And so if we were to halt all Port 107 waivers, and then so folks couldn't really be doing BVlos work that they've been doing for 10 years, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, that would shut down an entire industry for a decade, which right now in the current state of affairs in business and politics, we don't really have time for.
Right.
And I kind of found it interesting when they did the newscast a while back, and it was interesting to me because they said we're going to clear the pathway for American drone um, uh,
U.S. dominance.
U.S. dominance. Yeah, looking for those words.
We're going to unleash U.S. dominance in the drone industry. And
But then there was more rules released right after that. So I was like, wait a minute, they just said they were going to take away rules, get rid of the bureaucracy, but then they're adding more rules. Wait a minute.
right,
Um,
right.
so
And so how does this impact a recreational operator? Well, if you want to fly beyond visual line of sight, so around something, behind something, it'll impact you directly. And so there's so much that's required that I cannot envision any individual doing this with this set if this set of proposed rules goes into effect as written. If you fly Part 107, there's a lot more to it. Now, how could those of us who fly FPV recreationally, how could this be of use? Most innovation in drones as well as FPV drones comes from the hobby industry, the community. The hobby organization is over 1.5 million pilots in the United States. We still are much larger
it's a lot of
than the
pilots.
the folks who fly commercially. This NPRM is targeted to very large organizations
Yeah,
who are also package delivery. So
right.
a fraction of 1% of drone operators in the country. That's who this gives regulation to. So if you think about that, well, so this means that if I'm flying recreationally, forget it. Why should I bother? Then I'll just ignore this BVlos thing. If the FAA took a different look at it and said, We want to nurture kids. We want to nurture the innovation. We want to nurture people trying things and doing crazy things that are crazy technologically, not reckless. And we want folks to go out into a desert and see how far they can fly these things.
Yeah.
And who cares if they crash? I mean, that's, you try to go find it, you make sure that you've got GPS on it, before it crashes, and maybe you can bring it back. But that's cool technology. That's innovation.
Yeah.
This NPRM has effectively shut that down.
So you think
So
that the new NPRM is gonna hold back FPV drone innovation in the US even
I
more?
I do. I do because it's so we've only talked about recreational, then now we think about okay, uh, in California there are lots of small and mid-sized companies that design and manufacture drones for the film industry. These are incredibly innovative people. They've put these are small startup companies. So maybe there's one employee, maybe there's 10, maybe there's 20. These are smaller companies.
Yeah.
These firms are completely incapable of complying with this NPRM, that need to add staff, that need to rebuild the aircraft. And if you think about the aircraft that they make today, it's largely where does the real innovation come from? Well, in California, in the film industry, they're videographers and they're camera geeks, and these are tremendously talented artists. They tend not to be RF radio frequency engineers who are integrating at a processor level pieces of code so that they can integrate an express LRS signal with a TSA, new BVlos that says
Mm.
here, I'm flying BVlos.
Yeah.
So you've got a mismatch, and um, that's what the FAA is demanding, is that a new aircraft has to fly fully autonomously, and it has to be capable of DAA, detect and avoid, so deconfliction, and it has to be able to either broadcast down to the Earth and then network in conformance monitoring data. Did I deviate from my flight path, or handle all of that processing in flight real time and then transmit a summary set of information. So that starts to shut down small and mid-sized companies as well. So that's shutting down innovation at the small. And
So what you're saying
what does
is,
the United States have? 70% of our
yeah.
economy is driven by small and mid-sized companies. So what are we doing?
Yeah. So you're saying basically, Dave, by 2026, we're all going to be flying indoors.
Or small, yes.
So
We're all going to continue to fly 44809 and or Part 107 without a waiver.
get those, yeah. So get those Tiny Whoop collection going. Get all your parts in stock. And I was telling people last year to buy DJI 4s, that they were going to be in short supply first, and then they were going to disappear. And that's why I ended up doing that video. Says I was right. There's some haters out there who hate it when I'm right, but I've been right a lot in this hobby for 11 years, making
Oh,
videos, and
yeah, and I've
that
been
was one of the things
recommending.
that you and I, folks like you and I, see this stuff coming. Um,
So you'll enjoy Blunty, one of our guys on FPVFC, did the research as to so sub two. We've been pushing fly sub 250. If you can fly sub 250, do it. It's because outside because
yeah,
it will get you away from a lot of regulations. Not all. I mean, you have to fly, and our website lists, hey, you still have to do the following, but it's a good place to go fly if you for absolutely for starting out. And so it goes back to, I think it was 1877, from a French infantry determined that a meme ball, this was also used in the U.S. Civil War, a projectile, pretty almost spherical, under 250 grams was considered non-lethal. And I'm like,
I
oh,
remember
really?
this one. Yeah, I
Right.
remember this one.
So not a lot of innovation. From why sub 250? It makes no sense. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and we pushed and asked Congress to please in the 2020, what was the 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act, which became the 2024 Reauthorization Act. They declined to include this, but we feel that kicking that limit up to 1 kilogram would be useful for recreational, very useful. But there we are. So this NPRM has impact to recreation, has extreme impact to Part 107, and it focuses only on very large organizations who can afford to hire multiple personnel doing the flight supervisor, the flight coordinator, the operator role, doing the record keeping, and purchasing a new set of equipment and paying for conformance monitoring, a third-party service that provides this work. The other thing that disturbs us overall about the NPRM is that there's not much written that's a requirement. More as you read it, it feels more like this feels like a request for quote. That it's the FAA is saying that they're going to uh, have the industry create the standard. The standard will become a means of compliance, and then the manufacturers or operators will need to comply and apply to the FAA with a declaration of compliance. So that's the same process that we did with remote ID. Remote ID took 6 years to develop the standard.
Oh
The
yeah.
means of compliance was approved after, I think, 7 or 8 months. And then the first remote ID module and broadcast and integrated or standard remote ID 6, 7 months until after the MOC was first issued. So if you think about that was an incredibly simple um, system. Not a lot in a remote ID uh, overall system, right? It broadcasts the message, and and that's all you need to do. And with a standard, it has to be integrated into the aircraft.
So let me get this question out there to you. One of the things that guys talked about on our channel, and they've watched a lot of the meetings that we've rebroadcast here on this channel, because I feel like they're very important subjects and discussions that the recreational pilots need to see, because it does affect them. Just like we've been talking about in this interview, how it affects them going forward in our hobby. One of the things that our audience noticed was that there was no one there on the panel speaking to people on that platform that represented the FPV hobby. Have you personally been invited out to any of those panels recently to speak on our behalf?
We've not. Um, and so um, we thought that being one of the four community-based organizations, the other, the
I
AMA,
mean, you should be first in line.
Flight Test Community Association, and
Flight test.
STEM plus C. Um, so we've not been asked to participate. We in 2022 we had a every 6 week meeting with FAA Communications that has stopped.
Mhm.
So um, it is absolutely an ad hoc level of communications with the FAA. Our uh,
I feel
our
like
most
a lot of this is ad hoc.
yeah, a lot is
Yeah, a lot of it is
the
just
one that those that that aspect of it that is not is that by being part of the ASTM remote ID working group that is staffed by senior FAA folks every week, and so that's um, uh, it's a really geek session, and it's the ASTM membership is happy if you want to join this, you're welcome to. Usually have to you bring something to the table.
yeah.
You're representing a group, a company, um, you know, and it's a who's who in UAS aviation as well as manned aviation, and it's some wonderful and brilliant people. that's a way to get in front of the FAA. In addition, we submitted an application, were accepted after a year to be on the drone safety team. This is an FAA and industry partnership. It remains to be seen what will happen to this organization with this administration. And so it's been quiesced, but not terminated at this point. We were working on a set of what's appropriate SMS for various levels of UAS,
Hmm.
safety management systems. So one of the requirements in Part 108 is you have to have an SMS in your organization. So this was a very useful piece of work for the FAA. So we were able to voice and with FAA folks there and present,
Hmm.
hey, look, we brought in one of the guys on our core team in FBVFC, Alex Suarez, is also the governmental affairs director for Multi GP. And Alex is also a ranked racer. He's really fast. And so he was able to come in and to describe to folks who have never seen or heard of FPV racing. He brought a video and said, "This is not sped up," and they're like, "My gosh, this is amazing." And so we were able to
Impressive.
describe this is the multi GP. This is what we do for safety. And the number of fatalities we've had zero. Um, and we're also able to describe freestyle recreation and how, what we normally go through and, what are the important safety aspects in that. And in FPVFC, we characterize it as propeller safety, battery safety, and airspace authorization. So the third one, it sounds like apples, oranges, and hand grenades, but um, it's those are the things that when you're new to the hobby, we feel are really important from a safety perspective. Know
Yeah,
where
and
you're flying, make sure you're not flying controlled airspace, and
since
then
okay,
educate yourself on props and batteries.
and I may have been hated on in the past, but for many years, I mean, I've taught safety first since drone camps was started back in 2014. I wrote one of the first public drone operation safety guides. It's still on our website in a PDF format. We wrote a version 1.0 and 2.0, and a lot of it is common sense. And that's how a lot of this ad hoc regulation gets started. It's based on common sense: where to fly, where not to fly, where to be safe, and where you're not safe. Um, and the first five of our public safety guide, they were suggestions because people, when I wrote this, they said, "Who the hell do you think you are writing this? You can't tell me what I'm supposed to do with my drone." And I said, I'm not trying to be, an official government entity. I'm just trying to give you guys a safety guideline of how to operate safely in the air in the United States airspace and not get yourself in trouble. This was to keep you
which
out of trouble.
which is
Uh,
one of the things that we're
so
required to do as a community-based organization is we have to write a set of safety guidelines. So each of the four CBOs have their own. So if you're flying recreationally and a law officer, any local law, or the FAA comes up and says, "What safety guidelines are you flying under?" You have to be able to say one of the four, and then you need to be able to just point to it. On a phone is fine, and so you can point to our website and here's the PDF.
yeah,
But we go through, this is where the FAA really pushed the limits. We felt that they were regulating via advisory circular, which means not going through a public commenting or rulemaking process. They wanted us to have many of the Part 107 regulations stipulated in our safety guidelines. The reason they were pushing this is that in the 2018 FAA Reauthorization Act, it said that recreational operators must follow the guidelines of a CBO. Must follow.
hmm,
So all of a sudden, your good common sense recommendations were codified in the CBO set of safety guidelines. So we were very careful on what we wrote, and our set of safety guidelines is skewed to or written to the benefit of an FPV pilot, and it's the only one that does not require a strobe light to fly at night because you don't require lights to fly at night. So it does say that you need to be able to see your aircraft.
And
So okay,
the
ambient light.
the first the first it's interesting because even the AMA was reaching out to me back then, and they were asking me, they were like, "Hey, can we get your training curriculum?" Because we had a physical brick and mortar store, and next to the store we had our field. And the whole idea, the premise of drone camps was literally exactly how it sounds. It was an entity that could bring individuals in and train them to be pilots under our own certification. Because at the time there was no certification, so, in order to help foster people into a safe space in our recreational hobby, that we developed this program. The AMA was quickly to contact me and say, "Hey, can we have a copy of that curriculum?" um, I wasn't wanting to give that away, obviously, but they were interested in fostering that, and a lot of our original ideas came from AMA safety guidelines and standards and common sense. But the first five of our rules in that public safety guide became FAA regulation, which is yeah, telling of sort of where we went toward the future. And it's not all my fault. Um, I was just putting some safety guidelines out there, and very common sense ones. But the number one rule on it was don't fly over people's heads, um, over federal property, things like that. Very basic things that everyone should know, but sometimes, or airports, some people just don't, for some reason, don't know. Now, Dave, we've talked about a lot of stuff that is very doom and gloom, and people sometimes come after me because sometimes I'll report on the doom and gloom of things. Um, there's just a lot of it in the world, but with all the things that we've talked about today, um, let's give our audience some type of silver lining for the future of the hobby. Where do we see the FPV hobby going for people that love this hobby, that are going to continue to fly, and that want to see continuing innovation for a hobby? How do you feel about the good side of where this hobby's headed in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
So that's a great question. The first is what are the things that, so why am I doing this? I've been doing this for 6 years. I'm retired. I don't need to do this. This is an all volunteer organization. It chews up a fair amount of my time. And I'm doing exciting things like reading federal regulations and rules and trying to make sense of them and arguing with federal folks about, why would I do this? We've been in, folks have flown FPV and they tell us, this is one of the most important things in my life. I suffer from PTSD, and this is one of the few reliefs I have. It's critically important that you succeed, and
Saves a
it
lot of people.
it brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
We've also heard from people who are chronic pain sufferers.
Hmm.
Same story. This is changing my life.
Yeah.
The work that you're doing is so important. So if if you can get out there and help some folks, that's so important. We then I've I have, was I joined my local chapter of Multi GP, and these guys fly mostly tiny trainers and spec racers, so 3.5 inch and 5 inch FPV racers.
Hmm.
So they said, Dave, you gotta get out, you gotta race. So I've been flying RC airplanes close on 50 years. I designed an over 100 mile an hour model airplane that
That brought you joy as a kid,
yes,
and it
absolutely. And
and it brought
as an
me joy
adult,
as a
as an
kid.
adult. So
But I'm
these guys,
continuing those things I did as a kid, and when I fly, I feel like a kid again. So that brings me that very found the foundations of what originally brought my joy in my life, what made me just feel so good as a
so
kid.
this multi GP chapter said, "Come on, Dave, you got to join in this race." So they sent me the link to the track. I flew it, and I got better and better till I wasn't crashing. I showed up. My fastest track time was a minute 10. The winning track time was 15 seconds a lap.
Oh man.
So I now know how very slow I am. But what's important is that I was outside, I'm flying with these guys, and they didn't hassle me about it. They didn't ridicule me. They were like,
Right.
you can get faster. You just
Right.
got to keep at it. You can do this. They were supportive,
Yeah.
inclusive, and it was fun. And we were all laughing about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm like a mobile pylon. I could fly the gates and, you guys could fly around me, but lots of laughing. In terms of innovation, linking right from multi-GP, and there are things like Civil Air Patrol with cadets, there are STEM programs across schools across the country. Anything we can do to help them, we try to do.
Yep.
We're working with a number of companies with respect to innovation. And so I do think that we are at the early stages of technical innovation in the drone industry. When you think of the incredible advances that were made in the computing and then information technology industry over the last 50, 60 years, it's amazing. And the speed at which innovation is coming along is accelerating. And
Well, I
this
have
is
some,
where AI has a
yeah,
lot of benefit.
and just to interject, I have some news that I don't know if you know, Dave, but and I'm sure that our audience doesn't know, but there is a commercial U.S. based company that is working on and probably done now a recreational HD FPV system. And there's also a commercial version of that, which will be much more expensive, but they're telling me that they're going to release this recreational version of an HD FPV system, which is very good news. So where we feel, what I said when all this first started with this China ban thing, I hope that it doesn't happen for the sake of the hobby. And I know that part of this ban, and they're not trying to do a blanket ban. That's what people have to understand. Okay, so there's only going to be certain parts and certain pieces that and certain companies. It's not going to be all flight controllers and things like that. So beta FPV companies like that, they might be just totally safe. Gap RC. We won't know until we go. But
Which segues into the tariff discussion. So,
yeah,
I used to release product from Global Tech into 170 countries simultaneously. So, supply chain, tariffs, things of that nature were very important to me. The average tariff in 2023 on goods coming into the United States was 2.5%. It's
oh wow,
15%. It's 15% today. That's the average number. That the only time it's been that high is immediately during the Depression in about 1929, 28, and
oh yeah,
before that in 1890 in the prior very severe depression. Tariffs are a protectionist and regressive tax on the population. So this is not good economic theory. This is not a good practice. And so this is going to be difficult for us to live through. I've also been pretty closely involved in what tariffs and what within the harmonized tariff schedule, which components and which products are being tariffed. And so at any one point, chips, all electronics, brushless motors, um, all the components that we need to build a drone are more heavily tariffed than they were in 2023. So to me, the positive aspect of this is that we do have innovation. And so as you trickle down or tick off, what are the aspects of a drone or what are the components of a drone that we need? Printed circuit board, check, ESC design. Interestingly, flight controllers are easier to design than ESCs, but we've got both happening in the United States,
or
design and manufacture.
analog VTXs.
Right. Analog VTX is a good path. We've also got HD0 As I said, a US
Yeah.
based country, current manufacturing in mainland China. We'll see what the plans for the manufacturing are, but the intellectual property that has created is US based company, Divimath. And thank
I
you,
was
Carl
just about
Zhao.
to say Divimath. Yeah.
Um, Frames, easy to cut carbon. There's not a lot of IP around frames. Propellers, a little
Mhm.
tricky, but not a lot of IP, intellectual property. That's a capital investment that you need an injection mold, and you need the recipe for the right plastic. So it'll take a little bit, but that's not years. That's a couple months worth of work. So we've motors, capital intensive, but it's how to get the cost down is tricky, but we're up for that. And so, we've got smart people in this country that can take on and develop all of the today components and then do things like Skydio's doing and start sweeping the technology into higher and faster processors so that the UAS or drones that we have in the future are lighter, they're faster, they can do much more. They can handle, we could, envision an FPV drone with all of the function of a DJI today, if that's of value to the user. So
Yeah. So
I'm optimistic.
I feel like we have some exciting projects going on, and we talked about that ban list only being like certain companies. So that's a partial silver lining for the hobby, that we're not just going to get we're not going to go cold turkey. So with that said, we do have a very good handful of companies, investors, people of interest that want to see our hobby continue on the American side of things. So I think that it feels like to me, Dave, that we're kind of headed back toward, it almost feels like 2014, 2015 all over again. It's almost like what I called like the Great Reset. Um,
Yeah, but and at
you
the
know,
same time, we've got 2025, 2026 software. And so that's
yeah.
fantastic
So we're
because
ahead of where we were.
oh yeah, by
We have a
leaps
huge
and
head start.
bounds. Yeah,
But
as you and I have discussed, you know, starting up in 2016, you had to knock your head against the wall to get an FPV drone in the air. Today,
some of us,
you've got working flight controllers, working ESCs. Betaflight
yeah,
is amazing. And then if
yeah.
you don't want to use Betaflight, you've got iNav or ArduPilot or Pix4. And so you've got a suite of different really functional and fantastic platforms of software that are all very operational. So,
We have great companies here in the U.S. too. We have Brain FPV.
yep,
Um, uh, we have TBS Black Sheep is
yep,
now manufacturing out of Virginia,
yep,
and they're teaming up with some other folks who are legends in the hobby.
yep.
Um, we also have
Ewing Aerospace,
Ewing
friends of mine.
Aerospace. We have Arc Electronics,
Yep.
very high-end company making some very cool stuff. And we have the guys at Rotor Riot.
So these are in the sense of demographics, these are smaller companies, right? These are small to mid-size, mid cap companies, as viewed in the definitions by the U.S. federal government. So as we work through any of the regulations, we try to remind the people we work with in the FAA, as I said earlier, 70% of the revenue generated out of the United States is generated by small and mid-sized companies. This hobby is dominated by recreational pilots, 1.5 million. And this is, so we have a community, we have an industry, we have a pipeline of resources.
Hmm.
And as I talk to people, I said, if we can get a kid enthused about flying a drone, and then after a couple of years, they're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, but they go into computer science.
Right.
Oh, sounds like a win to me.
Yeah, I mean, and like when you and I were kids, there was the AMA fields, which they still are out there, but the AMA fields were a springboard for future manned aircraft pilots.
Absolutely.
And pilots that are now in civilian aviation in all sectors. Maybe it's not even just being a pilot. Maybe it's just being on the tarmac and being an engineer or a mechanic, things like
Right.
that that lead people into aviation. So I used to do a youth aviation day about once a year. We would, and we did this at the airport, right? This is back in, I believe, 2014, 2013. We had a huge crowd come out. We did demonstrations of RC airplanes and gliders, and we had simulators set up all in a row. And people could fly an RC airplane virtually and not crash one of ours. But I wonder how many kids were affected by just something simple that you go to like that as a kid, and then you just your whole it changes your whole life, and the whole trajectory of your life just by that little bit of influence and that little bit of fun that you had that one day, that maybe your dad or your mom took you to, maybe you went with a friend, but it can change lives. And that's why I think recreational FPV is so important for the future of the United States.
Right.
And I've talked about it before. I think that if there was any downfall of American recreational FPV hobby, I think that that would be a somewhat of a threat to national security. Um,
Yeah. I
and
mean, where are our, next generation of fighter pilots coming from?
right, um, and some of those kids are gamers, getting into FPV on the simulator side of things, and then translating over to be maybe they join the military and they want to be an FPV pilot. So there's a whole new generation of pilots that are coming into our industry from all directions, whether they want to be a military pilot or they want to be a commercial operator, or work for Wing or drone on uh, drone camps, or FPV Freedom Coalition. So there's a lot of different directions that people can learn, engage, get educated, make friends, have
Right.
it as a therapeutic type of thing. I've talked to people, lots of veterans that, they will email me and say, "Hey, man, I want to say like thank you because you helped me get into this hobby and you gave me something that sort of distracted me um, from my late night thoughts. It allows me to be focused on something else. Because when the sun goes down, that's when sometimes the demons come out for people and trauma. So just being able to make it through the night, for some people is very hard, and giving back joy to people through inspiration and bringing fun back to their life. That's what it means for me. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's
And
why,
and there's so many different aspects. You can be a maker, you can build stuff, you
yeah,
can create,
create
you
your
can
own
design, you can reach into the software side of it. Or if you're
3D
it's well, no,
printers.
I'm really competitive. I'm only interested in flying. Then you can race and you can get out there and be outside and be with friends and laugh it up. And then that's a one thing that I've seen again and again with multi-GP in between races all the racers are trying to help each other make sure that they can
Yeah,
all get into the next heat.
and get
And
back up in
so,
the air. Yeah.
yeah, they're cutthroat when they're flying, but
Yeah,
boy,
I've
they'll
seen them
help.
just over like soldering another guy's flight controller back together or putting
Right.
back on ESC wires back to the motor. Like, so um, it's such a great community, and there's a lot of positivity around it. And what I just really want to keep putting out there is that um, this is all about FUN. It's not about what's happening in the Ukraine. And I hate that, or other proxy wars around the country or around the world. Um, I I hate to see us put in that paralleled with that world. Um, that innovation has um, stopped one of the largest countries and most powerful countries in the world from taking over an entire country, which is an amazing thing, in the will of those people. However, it's like I really want to distance ourselves from the nefarious public
Yeah,
thinking
this
that
is
we're
where we
associated with any type of nefarious activities.
Yeah, drones for good is a messaging that we push, and it's important too. And when folks say, well, I hate drones because, they can spy on my daughter,
Right,
or
right.
they're all
Or
they do is, when I
you're
hear
gonna
drone, it just, they're used in war.
you're gonna
It's
look in my
like
window.
it's like, now wait a second. Let's think about this. Let's think about how many kids were found in cornfields or in a hiking, or, that their lives were saved because of a drone,
Or a lost,
or
lost person, senior
great
citizen.
lives that we good jobs in, figure out what type of inspection. Well, what are you into? Are you in construction? Well, there's construction inspection with drones. Are you into aircraft maintenance, A&P, airframe and power plant maintenance? Well, instead of taking an aircraft out of service, putting it into a hangar, putting scaffolding around it, you take it off to an apron and you fly a drone around it today. So there's
Hmm.
so many. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we need to proselytize all the time about, look, these things are really popular. They're going to be with us. They go from small to large. Where doing things like washing buildings and spraying fields, so that we don't have to have people exposed to those dangers. They're helping de-escalate situations where police are involved because they can get in to a situation and see what's going on and
They
have
can talk to a person inside a house that's holed up. I
exactly
have friends in the police department that use an Avata too, and they'll fly in through the attic. They'll knock a window out up top with a rubber bullet. They'll fly down the stairs, and then they'll come into the living room. Even, I mean, these guys are very well trained,
right.
and they'll just just so it is ad hoc. They'll just slap a little radio on top of it, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, I know this is the worst day of your life, but just let's go ahead and get this over with, and let's come on outside." And de-escalation, it's great for that.
Yep.
They've lost a lot of them because sometimes when they
But
fly
it's
into a living room somewhere, the guy stomps it, and
So it's
there's
a couple, so it's $1,000 drone instead
and the
of
problem that we talked about before with that, and the police department has told me face to face, is that they can't afford to just go out and buy another Brink
right,
drone out of Seattle, because those things are
10
10
times.
times more expensive than a DJI drone. So
Right.
those guys, the first responders, right on the ground at the front lines of keeping the public safe, are some of these guys are spending their own money on parts and stuff to make that happen. But if they have to uh, not rely on DJI, that really, oh man, that's a
And this
big
this is a
problem for the
this is a,
industry.
to come full circle.
First responders.
We're pushing for regulation that makes sense. And so if you want some new regulation, make sure you're not, cutting off your nose to spite your face. Don't ban DJI if DJI is still critical in the United States in commercial as well as public safety. So do things that are sensible. When you bring out 108, don't shut down 107 until you have 108 operational.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of it's common sense, and I understand. The FAA is a 45,000 person organization, and the folks working on this rule are just a small handful of people, and they did what they could. Some of the work in it is not up to where we need it to be, and we're willing to help.
Well, we hope that going forward that things work out for recreational pilots and people that just want to have fun. They just want to have fun. Uh, because that's what we're here for. We want to see new innovations. We want to see new releases. We want to get back to that height of the FPV hobby back in like 2017, when there was like 3 or 4 new drones coming out, like uh, a week or a day. It seems like when the pandemic happened, we saw a lot of slowdown of pretty much everything, including toilet paper. But I would love
But
to
now what we're seeing is that
see us
because
get.
a number of the retailers are coming out with bind and flies, that there
Mhm.
are any number of younger folks getting in, they're not interested in building. They're not a geek like you and me who's like enjoys building the drone as much as we enjoy flying it. They want to just fly. And my view is there's nothing wrong with that. If they're into FPV and out there and they're out there racing, and then they struggle, building or rebuilding,
I
that's
mean,
okay. We'll get through
building
that.
building is very important, and I've done hour-long tutorials on how to do it from scratch. Tons of them on our channel uh, as a mini drone camp. But there's also something to, if you're the guy that goes out and you get a bind and fly, you know, you're not uncool if you do that.
Right.
Because really what it boils down to is just having fun, right? We're back to that fun thing.
That's
And
right.
so you can get to the fun at FUN a little quicker doing that. Now, there's going to be a point, and this is going to happen to everybody. You're going to break it, and you're going to have to do some type of repair, or you're going to have to send it to me to repair for you, which we will do. We have an FPV repair service. Just put a plug out there for our own website, but uh, you can also get somebody to help you. So if you have a buddy who's
Right.
close by, or I mean, I used to drive 3 hours uh, to central North Carolina out to Greenville, a little eastern side of North Carolina. But I would drive out there and I would spend the entire weekend with some AMA guys and bring my camper trailer and I'd park it right on the AMA. It was a private field AMA area. And those guys would help me all weekend. And I would absorb as much about RC helicopters and the gyro systems back then as much as I could. Head balancing, links and all that stuff, and tail rotors and direction of travel and all this stuff. And I would go home and I would break something and I would have to turn around and drive back 3 hours again and wait till the next week to be able to maybe order the parts as quick as I could, get them shipped overnight, and then have those guys help me all over again. And they were so friendly to help me get back in the air. Um, and that's what it just also kind of like, what you and I are doing for a lot of people is fostering that type of friendly environment.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I definitely
it's
think
a
that's
it's a community that'll help each other. So you
what I've
broke it.
seen.
Okay, what'd you break? What happened? What's it doing now? Does it fly? Did you cook the flight controller? What broke? Yeah,
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
yep.
Um, there's some snobs out there. Avoid those people. Just let them be unhappy, and you will find your people in this hobby. And it might not be a whole bunch of people. Maybe it's just a core group, handful of guys who are supporting each other. But you will find yourself in very good friendships. And some of my best friendships that I've found were meeting guys in this hobby, just at a soccer field 11 years ago. Still great friends with those guys, and all of those guys still fly, which is also cool. Uh, but Dave, I think it was a great discussion today, and I think we covered a lot of topics that I really wanted to get into with you and get some of these topics talked about and out there to the community, because there's so many different topics that are all kind of coming together at one time here, with the regs, the supply chains, the tariffs, uh, a tiny little bit of AI, and there's just a lot of things happening all at once. But that was one of my goals. It was a very big goal to talk to you and sort of get your take on all of that. Um, and hopefully, people that are watching today are feeling a little better about the direction of where we're going as a hobby, because I don't this is not over yet. We're still going to keep going forward. We're still going to innovate, and we're just going to keep putting our voices out there for the FAA and the government to hear that we're still here and we still want to operate recreationally in the airspace. And we still love this. We still love this hobby. We're not going to give up on it.
Absolutely. Well said.
But
And we'll continue with FPVFC doing the work with the FAA so that folks can, just as you say, go out and have fun. And
absolutely.
with minimum headaches and minimum regulations. That's the objective.
Yep. And keep an eye on those new things that are coming down the pipe for you. And You can look on the FPV Freedom Coalition's website for some news from Dave and his guys. And you can also look on our website. You can find news there. You can find news on YouTube. So there's a lot of support for you guys out there, and we're still here for that. I'm not going anywhere because I'm just obsessed with it. Every morning when I wake up, I want to, wonder what am I gonna do today? And that's kind of the coolest thing about uh, being in this hobby. It's because every single day is different. Uh, I'm either fixing stuff or making videos or replying to emails, and just helping from all different directions all the time. And that's that's what the core of this hobby is all about.
You're
Um,
here.
is keeping people up in the air and spirits high as well. So don't get too depressed, you guys. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to work it out. And Dave is the man that is at the forefront of that to help us still be able to recreate and fly. So I want to say thanks to Dave for joining us today. Dave Messina, you guys in the house, and we're going to say goodbye for now. But if anything comes up in the future, Dave, can we reach out to you and
Absolutely.
have you on the show again?
I'll be delighted. And thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But thank you, Dave, for coming out today. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And again, guys, check out FPV Freedom Coalition. What was the website?
fpvfc.org.
Okay. All right, Dave. Thank you so much. And guys, take care out there. Be safe. Be smart.
Have fun. Or remember what Chris Thomas said. FPV is the antidote to computer games.
So we've been talking to Dave Messina today, and I'm Justin Davis. Guys, take care. And we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.